I was never a cardio machine.
For as long as I remember myself, I always excelled at sprinting, but when time came to do long distance running, I suffered.
The same applied to cardio-intensive training. Every time I did some of it, I ended up feeling bad. So naturally, I didn't jump into cardio-intensive training unless I had to.
Cut 2 years later. I started training kickboxing. The regular training didn't feature cardio-intensive segments, but it did used to be demanding enough on its own.
During the first few months, by the time sparring ended, I felt exhausted.
But over time, I got used to it, and by the end of the training, I had plenty of energy left.
But then something happened I didn't see coming.
My coach, Sergey Masloboyev, professional fighter and kickboxing world champion, started preparing for his next fight.
As soon as my teammates who were training with him longer heard the news, they looked at each other and said, "When Sergey prepares for a fight, we all prepare for a fight." I asked them what they meant. Turns out my coach's training regimen fits that of a world champion.
Once he starts preparing for a fight, he trains every day, almost all day long.
And since his training becomes more intensive, so does ours. I wasn't sure what to expect until the first training during his fight preparation happened.
At the very beginning of the class, we started doing high-intensity interval training. The training was grueling.
And by the time I thought it was over, there was more.
I didn't even last until the end of it, as I got nauseous during training and eventually had to go puke.
The next class, we did cardio-intensive training again.
Class after class, I was nauseous and felt exhausted by the end of it.
Then one day I learned that our coach is going to be away for a few weeks training at his own camp, meaning we will be training on our own. I thought, here's my salvation. Obviously, we won't be pushing ourselves as hard without him being there. Yet, I was wrong.
As I arrived to the first self-organized training with our group, the first member to arrive was my training buddy who was a cardio machine.
He was also leading the training.
For the next 45 minutes, we were running up the stairs and switching around between all sorts of high-intensity interval exercises. With every minute, I felt more and more nauseous as I tried my best not to reach a level where I had to puke. I managed to survive the training, but by the end of it, I was exhausted. And I knew that the same story will be repeated again next time.
Then I had three choices. I could have given up and waited until my coach will have his fight. I could have tried surviving, or there was the third option. To best describe it, I remembered something I learned in yoga.
I was once told by a yoga instructor that we usually like to do the stretching poses and exercises that feel good to us. Those also tend to be the ones which are easy for us to do, and they are usually not the ones we need.
That is because our body is already capable of doing them at ease. And then there are the exercises that we hate.
We hate them because we suck at them. We suck at them because our muscles are not flexible or strong enough to do them, which creates extra discomfort. And our brains are hardwired to avoid discomfort.
I'm not talking about doing yoga postures which feel painful in a traumatic way that leads to injury. But approached correctly, I believe there is great value in this principle.
Most of us end up doing exercises which are easy for us, but they are rarely the ones we need. And the exercises which are difficult for us and which we tend to avoid are the ones that we usually need the most.
In my own yoga practice, initially I used to do poses which I was already good at.
But when I started applying the opposite approach by focusing on the exercises which were difficult for me,
initially things sucked. But over time, I got used to them and my body started to feel much better with my old injuries healing up. I realized that my cardio situation could be the same. And so the third option was neither to run away nor to simply keep on surviving, but instead to adapt and excel.
Instead of dreading the next training, during my free time, I started doing my own cardio sessions at home. When in the past I would go easy on myself in the cardio department, now I started pushing myself to my limits doing my own training. I also focused on doing the exercises which I had the hardest time with.
I hated doing it every time, but I kept pushing on, trusting that if I will keep at it, eventually I will get used to it.
After training like this for over a month, at the end of the kickboxing class, which included cardio-intensive exercises, I was surprised to find myself having some extra energy left and not feeling nauseous.
The training was still hard as hell, but I wasn't dreading the next one anymore. And by the end of the next one, I felt like I could go on again. If you want to learn why I was afraid to set up new martial arts goals, how I overcame that fear, and what goals I've chose to follow, click on this video right here. Thank you for watching, and as always, I wish you to own your journey.